Hello, welcome to video training. We'll be covering Accounts Payable Level 1, Chapter 4, End of Month Procedure, Reports and Emailing. From the main menu, select Accounts Payable. Now, you've noticed every time we've gone into Accounts Payable, there's been this little message that says there are 9 bills past due. Every time you go into the payable module, it'll check all your payable items, and it'll look at the current date that you're running at right now, and it'll see if anything is past due. Now, it's not going to show you things that are on hold because obviously they're not past due. So these are all things that, according to the system, you should have paid them by now. If you wish to print this report, you can say yes. This report will tell you all your different vendors and tell you the different invoices that are past due. In this case, the electric company, we owe $329. These are the two dates. This is the date of the invoice. This is the date it was actually received. And this is the date we wanted to pay it. This is Verizon. Obviously, there are 3 invoices that are past due. This is the total for Verizon. If we look at the end of the report, we have $9,600 worth of bills that are past due. Okay, let's talk about some of the things you may want to do at the end of the month. For example, you should age your payables at least once at the end of every month. Basically, by aging the payables, you would select Age Payables. It will automatically, just like receivables, and if you've watched receivables training, it's pretty much the exact same thing. It's just saying, give me, if we're running now in April, so it's assuming we're going to age everything for March. So it defaults and puts all the dates the way most customers would want to use them. You can change those dates to whatever you wish. When I say OK to proceed, it now ages my receivables. It may take anywhere from a couple of seconds to a few minutes depending on how large your receivables file is. Okay, now we've aged our receivables. Now let's go over some of the reports you may want to look at. Before we go into reports, there's one valuable tool that you may want to look at. This vendor year-to-date recap, and you'll see that in a lot of different places. You'll see it in the posting screen. You'll see it here. It's a good place to just kind of look if somebody calls up, a manufacturer calls up, a supplier calls up and says, look, I have some questions. I want to know, I want to compare my bills to your bills. When's the last time you sent a check? When's the last time you sent me some money? This is by far the easiest and most convenient place to answer those kinds of questions. You select year-to-date recap. You now would type in what you're looking for, or just do a lookup. There again, this is our standard lookup by keyword, by name. Let's suppose it's the Mass Electric. This tells me everything we've done with Mass Electric. So if I have somebody on the phone and he says, well, gee, we have this bill for $185. How come you haven't paid it? Yeah, he's right. We haven't paid it. I can select it and I can see there again the date that it was received, and that's important. What if somebody's saying we didn't pay a bill, but it just came in the mail 2 days ago? Well, we just got it in the mail. Maybe you need to send it out sooner. So you can select on any particular line item you want. You can actually look and see the general ledger entries that were made for that if you wish. So this is a kind of place where you really can find out anything you want. If the vendor says, well, when's the last time you sent a check? Or I want to know all the checks you've sent. Obviously, this is listing every single payment you made to that vendor. It tells you the type of payment, the actual bank. This here was done with cash. This is the date. So you can answer usually all questions in this one place. It's a convenient place to go to when you have a manufacturer on the phone and when he's asking you things about payment, how I paid. There again, by looking at this, you can tell what checking account it was, what the check number was, whether it's been cleared or not cleared, whether it was paid by credit card, whether it was paid by cash. So you can answer all those questions. Okay, that's year-to-date recap. Now let's go into the reporting section. Reports. There's many, many reports. Let's start off with current payable trial balance. On all the reports, you're going to be asked similar questions. First question is, what do you want to see in the report? Do you just want to see accounts with balances only? Normally, that's what you want to do. If you're not sure what to do, just hit the defaults. You can actually say, now I want to see everything that's in my payables, even if it's zero. Or you may say, I just want to see things that I owe that are past due more than a month. I just want to see things that are past due more than 2 months or more. What is the sequence that you want to see it in? For example, do I want to just select certain vendors? Do I want it sequenced by number, by alphabetical, by year-to-date purchases, by zip code? Now this is an important question. Do I want to print a report or do I want to create a drill down? Let's do one of each. Do I want to include floor plans? Normally when you're listing payables and looking at a payable age trial balance, you do not want to include your floor plan accounts. That's usually considered long-term liabilities. If you wish, you would check mark include floor plan accounts. I'm going to say process report. Now it's going to ask me, depending on what I select here, beginning and ending. Now it's my standard question. Do I want to see it on the screen? Do I want to print it on my computer? Do I want to have a Windows dialog box to show me all my printers in the building? Do I want to put it to a PDF file and maybe email it to somebody? Let's look at it on the screen. It's a standard trial balance, basically as my current balance. This is what's 1 to 30, 31 to 60, over 60. It'll also give me year-to-date purchases this year, year-to-date purchases last year. So you'll have an idea of what you're still spending year to date. These are only people that have balances. Okay, let's go back to the same thing and see what the difference is between printing a report and creating a drill down. And maybe I'll include my floor plan cost. And maybe I'll ask for it by year-to-date purchases. So now it's sequencing it by purchasing. And now what it's doing, it's going to list it, but this is what we call a drill down. Now with the drill down, I have some added features. Obviously, it's giving me the same information. In this case, I told it to list my floor plan accounts. But with a drill down, you have the ability to select any particular line and get more information. So from here, I can select any line I want and get down to whatever detail I want. For example, if I select Massachusetts, Mass Electric, I now can select a particular bill that I'm interested in. I can actually look at the general ledger entries that were made for that bill. I can actually see the, it's not paid, but if it was paid, for example, on this one here, you can see the check number. The check number is 205. It was paid from checking account 0, and that's the date of the check. So you can pretty much get any information about any payables issue. Okay, let's look at the next one. Historical payable by trial balance. What this is going to do is just tell me my current age trial balance depending on how I aged it. What this is going to do is give me a little bit more features. This question is pretty much the same. Do I just want to see accounts with balances, with 0 balances, 1 month, 2 months? What order do I want to see it in? Do I want to print it on a report? Do I want to create a drill down menu? Do I want to include floor plans? Do I want to print detail? So let's just print a standard report. Because I said name, starting name, what do you want the date to be? Now this is how I have my system currently aged. Maybe I want to do it by today, or maybe I want to go back and do it as of the end of the year. I can pick any date. Let's just do it for the 16th. Now what we're going to have here, it's going to take whatever date I did and say, okay, this is what it is from this particular date. This is 1 to 30, 31 to 60, and it's going to age this depending on the date that I put in. Balance as of this date. These are my balances as of this date, and this is how it's aging. So this allows you to type in any date you want, whether it be backwards, and look at those particular age groups. Now, this also has a drill down option. Let's create the drill down. Let's print detail. This has an option of saying, I want to see the detail. So I want to print it, I want to see the detail. And what's the date? Well, we can do the current if we wish. Now this is somewhat different. What this is doing is it's showing me the balance and it's showing me the detail of that balance. So it's basically saying, okay, this electric company, here's their balance as of this date, and here's what makes it up, and here's the individual invoices that make up that amount. We have this one here that's on hold. We have this one here that we need to pay, and this one here we need to pay. Obviously, this is the date that is due. This is the date of the invoice. Now, with the drill down, select line. We have a couple of added options. For example, If I want to get the detail of this one particular bill, I can double click on that bill. I'm going directly to that bill. Is the invoice date. I can actually click and then look at the journal ledger entries for that. If I click on the name, if you click on the name, you obviously get to the complete whole history of every single item, paid, unpaid, whatever. And now I can click some more and get more information. If I click on an individual line item, there again, I have the ability of looking at just that particular line item, as well as seeing the general ledger entries and as much information as I wish to see about that. Obviously, if it was something that was paid. Now, I only listed things that were closed. So you can drill down and get as much information as you want. Detail, as well as overall. Okay. Let's look at the next report. Payable items report. This has a few more options. What this is going to do, it's saying, okay, I want to go out to my system. I want to list all my items. And it's basically saying, what do you want to see? If you're not sure what to do, hit the defaults. But it's asking me a couple more questions. First of all, how do I want to sequence it? Which is basically the same, by vendor, by alphabetical. Next question is it's going to ask me a date, from and to. What do you want that date to compare to? Do you want it to compare to the payable date, the date that we need to pay it, the due date? The received date, the date that it came in the mail, the date that I actually received it, the invoice date that's on the invoice, or the paid date. Obviously, the paid date is the date I paid it. What records do you want to see on this report? All records, paid and unpaid. Payable items only. I just want to see everything that I've paid and that are on hold. I want to see things that are only paid, things that are only on hold. I'll currently payable items. Normally that's what people want to do. They're not interested in things they paid. They're more interested in things that aren't paid. And that's what the default is. Let's do one using this option. Do you want to see it on a report? Do you want to create a drill down? Do you want to export it and put it into an Excel spreadsheet? Do you want to print the detail? The GL detail. What that'll do, it'll show you every single entry that was made in your payable system and along with it all the GL entries that were made. Depending on, do you want to include floor plans? So there's a few more options. Let's go in with the standard thing that most people would do, which is right what we're doing now. Let's just print it. Starting name. What date range do we want to see? And this is just a standard report. And it's listing everything that's due right now based on the date range that I'm looking at. Every single vendor, there's my vendor totals. There's the totals by vendor. There's the amount paid, any credit memos that we have, any debit memos that we've had, total amount of the invoice, and what the status is. These all need to be paid. That's what I asked for. Let's go back in there and pick a few more options. Maybe this here I want to look at invoice date. Maybe I want to look at all records. Maybe I want to create a drill down. And let's do it with or without GL entries. Date range that we're looking for. Now we're looking at the invoice date. Now it's going to look at each vendor. Now we're listing everything, whether it be paid or not paid. So let's take a look here. Obviously, if we double click here, we can go right into and see the detail that we want and get as much information as we want. We can see now this says that these are paid. So it's showing everything. If we look, we can see all the credit memos that were applied, the total amount of the invoice, the total amount that's due. Here's my totals. Things that are on hold. So this gives, and I'm using the wheel to move it down. If I look, here's my final totals of invoices. What I've actually done in this right here is all discounts that applied. We've got paid amount, credit amount, debit amount, and total. So here's my totals for everything, right down at the bottom. Now, there again, you can double click on any line and get as much information as you want. Whether I go detail, I'm clicking on a detail line. Here's the detail. Here's my overall payables. And there again, you can select on any detail you wish. and get as much information as you want. Check numbers, GL entries. There again, you can just click away and get right down to any level of detail that you want. So all these reports are very powerful. Also, you can do the same thing and export it into Excel spreadsheet. If we also create a report and maybe we want to see GL entries, and there again, this will do a similar thing, except here it will actually list the GL entries. Here's my bill, and here's the entries that were made for it. There's the account numbers that were made. There's the debits and credits that were made. There's the period that it went into. So you can get as much information as you wish from this report. This right here is a report, name and address list and GL account numbers. Usually when people get the system up and running, they'll go in and they'll start using their payables. They usually do it a module at a time. You know, most people do not try to get everything running on day one. It makes things very stressful and sometimes a little bit easier just to get one module running. So they get up and they get their payables running, and then the last thing they do is say, okay, my payables is all set. I'm at the end of the day or maybe the end of the week, I'm spending an extra 10 minutes just making my general ledger entries into my other system or whatever. Now I'm ready to convert everything to and start going live with general ledger. So what they want to do is list all their payables and find out which ones have account numbers and which ones don't. This is a convenient way to do that. It just comes in. What order do you want to see it in? Yes, I want to list account numbers from all my vendors. And what this will do, it'll list every single supply you have and the account number you're using in the description of the account number. So that's looking that up in GL and telling me, okay, normally this is what I'm defaulting to. When I use this account, it looks like I'm using general ledger. So it tells you, what you want to look for here is ones that say no GL account. Now that's not going to stop you from using general ledger. That just means whenever you post anything to that particular account, you're going to have to manually key in an account number. That's something you may want to do. But if you don't want to do that, put an account number in the vendor record and you won't have to be manually doing that. Okay, obviously name and address labels, that's pretty self-explanatory. You can print labels any way you want. They usually typically use the AV5160s. Check register report. Okay, check register report has similar options. It's going to list all your checks. How do you want to sort it? Vendor by date, check number within date. This is how you're going to pick it out. By keyword, I just want to type in a name. I want to type in anything and just have it pick out. Do you want to create your own sort? So this is selecting. This is whatever I pick here is going to give me a beginning and ending. What I do here is how I'm going to sort it, if in fact I want to sort it. If I don't say sort it, it'll sort it by whatever I pick here. These are the options. What do I want to see? Basically, it's just going to print all my checks. Do I want to print deposits? Well, most of the time, no. Do I want to print GL detail for each check so I can see the check and the general ledger entries that were made when I posted that check? Do I want to print the readmittance for each check so I can see the check and exactly what bills were paid with that check? Do I want to print subtotals? Do I want to exclude bank transfers and credit card payments? Lots of times you may want to exclude your bank transfers and credit card payments. Do I want to print a report on a piece of paper or look at it on the screen? Do I want to create a drill down? Do I want to export it to an Excel spreadsheet? So let's do one example here. We're going to create our own sort, and maybe we're going to do it by vendor and bank number. And we don't want to print deposits. We don't want to do that. Maybe we're just going to use all the defaults. And I'm just going to print the report. How do you want to sort it? You can sort it by the amount of the check, by description, by date of the check, by vendor, by record code. Record code would be if you were listing all your deposits. It would actually sort them down by deposits, then by checks, then by bank transfers, things like that. Maybe what we want to do is just sort it by date of check, and then maybe by check amount. Because I selected it by vendor and date, it's asking me vendor and date, so I can narrow it down. Now I said to print the report. Here's my report, sorted in the way that I wanted it sorted by date. It's basically telling me what it is. This is a check. This was an auto deduction. Here's my totals. I can do the same thing and pick other options. Maybe I want to create a sort. Maybe I want to print deposits. Maybe I want to create a drill down. Same thing. How do I want to sort it? Maybe I want to sort it by amount of check, then the date of the check. So you have many, many options here. Now it's sorted by the amount of the check. And there again, you have options that you can do here. If you click on it, it goes to the vendor. So if I got a problem, I want to look and see where my problem, this is telling me everything I want to know. So the drill downs are very convenient. It'll also tell me totals on, hey, what the checks were, what the deposits were, so forth. Okay, check reconciliation register. What bank do you want to do? Do you want to list cleared? Open. List all. If I just want to see checks that were cleared, date range. These are the checks that have been cleared. Now, this pretty much concludes going over some of the basic reports. Now, the next chapter will be covering your bank reconciliation, where you'll be clearing your checks, and there's many other more reports in there. So, we'll move on to the next section, which is bank reconciliation.